Okay, let's in this screencast we are going to focus on an application of JavaScript or how to use JavaScript in an actual website. Up till now what we were doing is going to the basics of JavaScript, and let's put that basics into practice now. We talked about variables, operators, conditionals, loops, functions and objects in JavaScript. Now let's go and see how they work together. Now this is a sample form created. It's a pizza ordering form. You have to enter your phone number and then you have to select some options, and then when you press the order button you will get the total value changed over here. So that's how you're going to do that. Now JavaScript is used for adding interactivity to a website. Over here what we are going to do is we're going to see how the first step to add interactivity is whenever someone fills in the form we need to get those values from those forms. Like for example, one of the reasons why people use JavaScript is to provide validation. Now in order to do the validation we have to first get the value and see if the value is correct or wrong. If it's wrong you provide an error feedback, and if it's correct you provide a successful feedback. So that's what we are going to do, but this is a two-part screencast. In the first part we're just going to see how to retrieve the values, and in the next screencast we'll see how to validate the form based on those values. Okay, now so this is a simple form where we have a phone number. We just enter whatever number we get over here. Let's suppose this a phone number, and then you have to select the main ingredient for your pizza, which is meat, chicken, seafood or veggie. Let's say veggie, and then type of crust, which is a drop down list. This is a radio button. This is a drop down list, and then you have additional toppings, which is a checkbox. Now that, and then again we have personalize, and then we can also again add more options over here in the personalize option, and then based on that you will get you can place the order and then actually is performed. Okay, now this is the code. Okay, this is the code for that the web page that you just saw. Let's start and see how we can do that. Now in an earlier screencast you saw that for functions in JavaScript we saw that we can add a function to a button and then retrieve that function when a button is pressed. This is usually done by attaching an on-click attribute to the button. So over here we have a button over here. It's okay, it's a link but it can act as a button. So what I want to do is I want to add an on-click option over here. So if I go ahead over here, say on-click, and then let's say I want to add a function order over here. Okay, now what I need to do is create inside my script place, I want to create that function. Creating a function in JavaScript, as we know, is using function keyword and then order and then the parentheses, and then we put the function code over here inside this. Okay, let's go ahead and print out a simple alert to see if my function is working when I press the button. Okay, let's say welcome to ordering a pizza. Okay, let's say I just want to print this out. Okay, let's save this, let's go back to our form and then press refresh that and then press order. We get the alert message, so that means it's working right now. So we are on a good place now. Now what we need to do is check how we want to retrieve values from this form. Okay, there are different ways of getting different values because of different form controls that we have. So over here in this form I have tried to put all controls possible. We are missing a few of them, but the missing ones you will see that they are almost similar to some of them. So let's start with the first one. Let's say whenever the user enters the phone number over here, we want to change something over here. Your total order is SAR 0.0 and you will be contacted on this upon delivery. Suppose we want to add that. Okay, so what we are going to do over here is, let's say I am going to get the value from the phone number, right? That should be my first case. Now how to get the value from this? Said whenever you enter the phone number, every form should have a name, and every control in the form should have a name. Now there are different ways of getting values from the controls in your form. Let's see both of them. Now one way of getting a value from a form, there is a method called document dot get elements by, as you can see over here, we have a few of the options available. So we have get element by name. That's one of them. We can also use document dot get elements by tag name. Okay, and there is one more, which is documents dot get element by ID. Okay, can use get element by name as well. Okay, so these are some of the functions that are available. Now what these functions do, as I told you in JavaScript, whenever a page comes to your browser, it is rendered as a DOM tree. Now inside the tree you can access any element of the DOM tree. Now each element, if it's a form control, you have it by a name. Now if you want to select a specific element, what you can do is you can use get element by a name if you want to access the element by a name. But suppose you want to do it by tag name, then you can. Tag names are these names, the div tag, tr, td, these are tag names. So if you want to access all the elements by tag name, you can use this one. But suppose you want to access all elements by their unique ID, you can use this one. Now see the difference over here. You said get element by element. That means it's a single. You know that ID is supposed to be unique for each item or each element in your HTML page. So that means that's why it returns only one value. But on the other hand, you have over here get elements by tag name. So in this case, it's an array. Because for example, if I'm expecting an element with all the div tags, then it will not be one element, because my HTML page can contain many elements with div tags. Now similarly, get element by name also works with both cases, with elements and by element, because then you can use duplicate names. It's not mandatory that you use unique names, but it's better to use unique names. It will be easy for us to cross-reference in the form. So over here in this case also, if you use element by name, it will return just one value, just single element. And if you use elements by name and you have multiple elements with the same name, it will give you that. For example, in cases of not drop down list, radio buttons, you have multiple elements with the same name. In that case, you can use elements by name and use the radio button over there. Okay, now so this is the case that we are going to do. Now this is one way of doing that. This is one way of getting elements by using the get element function. Okay, we are going to see both of them. Let's start with that. Okay, let's start with getting elements by each of those functions. Okay, now first I'm going to get the element by the name. Let's see, which element do I want to get? What's the name of that element? You see phone number, and the name of that element is phone. So I just go over here and then put phone over here. Now first of all, when you get the element, you want to store that element inside an attribute. Let's say del equal to this. Now this is just a handle. This is just a handle of that element. To get the value of that element, you have to use a function del dot value. It's not a function, it's an attribute. So del dot value will actually print out the value. So what I'm going to do is alert del dot value. You will see that it will be the number of that I'm going to enter over here. Let's see what happens. I'm going to refresh the form, enter the number, enter some number over here, and then press order. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. Let's refresh that. Okay, not getting properly. Don't know what happened. Do it again. Okay, even though it's there, it's elements, it's not elements, so I'm sorry about that. So we need to use phone in this case. Now since it's elements, you have to expect that this is an array. So if it's an array and you're expecting just the first one, let's just use 0. Okay, now it should work. So I'm going to say refresh and then enter some number over here and press order. You will see this number over here. Now let's dissect the code that we just wrote. So what I did over here is I'm using document get elements by name phone. Now this, even though I have a unique one, but still I have to expect that it's an array, because it's allowed for me to have multiple names. I was expecting that there is one without the s, but there isn't. So let's say it's elements, so this still will now be an array, because it may be an array with just one element, or if you have multiples you can have those as well. Now So what I'm doing over here is for the first element I'm printing its value. So whenever you use the dot value function, it will give me whatever value the user enters over here. Okay, so this is one way of getting that. Now this is not the only way of getting that. Let's say, what is the ID? Do we have an ID over here? No. Let's put an ID over here. Let's put an ID over here. Let's say ID is equal to telly. Okay. Now again, I want to get the value from this element. So let's save that. I can do something like that as well. Let's say, for example, over here, var telly equal to document dot get element by ID. Now this time I'm going to use the ID of the element. Now you see the difference between these two is, right, I don't need to use the array because it's not an array. An ID can be only just one element. It's unique. So in this case I just say telly dot value. That's it. Okay, I'm going to save this and then refresh my browser, enter some number over here and press order. This is my first one, and then this is my second one. See over here it says undefined because I don't know what happened. It should not be undefined because I just defined the value. Document that get, oh okay, sorry about that. It should be get element by ID. Okay, so that's something wrong about that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. Put the number, press order, you get this number. This is from the name and this is from get elements by ID. So that's about the same. Okay, so this is the second way. Now the third way of doing that is again using the type, using the tag name. Okay, let's say tag equal to document dot get element by tag name. Okay, now this tag name is input, right? Is input. An important thing you have to remember, if you're using a tag name, you have to know the order of the tags, because if you use 0, that means the first time you're using the tag input. Let's go back to the top. Let's see, I'm using my first input for the telephone number. Okay, so I'm using the first input for the telephone number. So this way, this value of this one will be stored inside. So I say alert, I'm going to say tag dot value. I cannot say tag dot value because I just told you that's an array. So we have to use 0 because this is the first tag. This is the first time I'm using input. Okay, and then I can say refresh this, enter some number, order. This is from the name, this is from the ID, and this is from my tag name. So you see, this is how we do it. Now, so for example, okay, that's supposed to be clear, right? That's supposed to be clear. Now, what we need to do is, let's say I want to do it the other way. I think this way it's going to be a little longer because every time I have multiple inputs, I have to either, suppose I don't have an ID assigned to it, and you are not allowed to change the HTML code, so you cannot use the ID. Suppose there is no name assigned to it, or suppose something is wrong with this way of doing that. So what I'm going to show you now is another way of accessing the same element. Okay, so I'm going to say var, say telly, or let's say cell, and then we say equate it to, this is the other way. Now you can use the same document dot. Now instead of saying any function get elements by or something, what we can do is you can access the element by using the form name, whatever name of the form you have, which is pr, or okay, it should not be this. Let's change it. It should be p order, pizza order. Okay, I'm going to change that over here. So it's p order, the name of the form, and then the name of the element, which is font. Okay, so let's go down. Say what is the name of the form? P order dot, what's the name of the font? Now this will give me the handle. The same thing that I was doing over here, I'm doing it over here. Okay, now to get the value, I can just say dot value, or just if you want the handle, you can just use dot font and use the value as we did over here. Okay, so again I'm going to do the same thing, say alert, and this time I'm going to say cell dot value. Okay, now let's go back and refresh this and then order it. This is okay, I didn't enter anything, sorry. Let's enter something and then okay, no, it should be a number, right? Let's press order. Say over here it says that it is 1 2 3. This is from the get elements by name. This is get element by ID. This is get elements by tag name, and this one is with using the form name and the name of the element. So these are different ways of walking through your DOM tree to get and handle of each element. Now we're just handling one type of elements. You can do the same thing for all, but there are different ways of handling each one of them. That's why the sample form has each one of them to showcase you how to get the values for all of them. Okay, but this is how you can do it for everyone. Now just one thing you need to remember: whenever you're using get elements by name or get elements by tag name, you always get an array. So you have to make sure what is the order of that element within that array and use the right index, otherwise it will not work. Whereas in case of an ID, you know that an ID is unique, so you don't need an array, it's just a single value. Okay, so that's about it. That's about how to get the values from this. Now this is how you use the dot value to get the value from a text input. Okay, this is a text input. Now this dot value applies to the text input, the password, and even the text area. Okay, so this is the same same thing that you need to use for all three of them. You need to use dot value and it will work. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out all this, because I want to start working with my code, so I'm going to comment all this. Now let's say what I need to do over here is to get over here and start working with my form. Okay, so the first thing, whenever the user enters the phone number, I'm going to use this way of getting the name from all the forms, because this is an easier way. You can use any one of them, whichever works for you, but this one is an easier one, so I'm going to use this one. Now I have to edit this. Your total order cost is SAR. I put this in a span tag for some reason, I'll tell you why. And then what you can say, and you, let's say you will be contacted at, I'm again going to use a span tag over here. Now span tags are used for inline elements. The good thing about using span tags with JavaScript is I can replace that code from JavaScript. Okay, I'm going to say name, and I'm going to say the telephone number. Okay, telephone number, and then say dot. Okay, so this is my form. Let's refresh that and see how it goes like. See, it's missing the number over here. So now what I'm going to do is whenever the user enters the number, I'm going to complete this form. So how do I do that? As we did earlier, I'm going to say var tel, which is my phone number. I'm going to use document.border.phone.value, right? I can use dot value. Now this time it becomes the value. This over here was the handle, and then I took the value from it. Okay, over here I'm just storing the value in the telephone. Now what I need to do is, once I get the value, I need to replace this with my the value. Now how do I do that? How do I do that? Now in JavaScript you can do that using this. Suppose I want to replace something by in the span text. What I need to do is again get the handle document dot, the name of the form is porder dot. Okay, I did the same thing, dot, and then I have the name of the element as tele, and then I want to put dot, and then I can say text. Okay, text equal to, let's say I want to enter this value of telephone number over there. Okay, I'm not sure if this is going to work because usually it used HTML to do that, but let's see how it goes. Okay, I'm going to refresh that because it usually manipulates the text node of this and adds the telephone number to it. Okay, I'm going to refresh that, add something, add a number over here, and then say order. I didn't do anything. Okay. 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 Don't know what happened. They're using a function for that, but I'm getting confused. I think it's inner HTML. Okay, let's see if there is an error that is going on. Okay, it says that it's not a function. Okay, let me just quickly check it back and come back to you. Okay, so what we're doing wrong was the inner HTML is actually not a function. It's just assigning that value to that property, and it will change this add text over here for that particular tag. So what I'm doing over here is I use document.getElement by ID. Okay, I get element by ID, and then what I do is to change the inner HTML and equal it to tell. So now let's go back and see how it works like. Let's say refresh this page, and then I'm going to enter a page phone number, and then it will just press order. My God, what happened now? I don't know if I saved this or not. So you refresh this, and then okay, now you can see that this space, it changed to whatever text I wanted to have right now. Okay, so our main idea is how to get the value, and this is how we get the value. So be order for dot value, and then we can add anything to a span tag which was available over there. Okay, now let's do retrieve values one by one from each form. So this one was for retrieving value from a text input. Now remember that the same thing, the same way works for retrieving values from text, from password, and from text area. Okay, they are the same. You just need to use dot value, and that's it. Now let's go back to another one. Let's say we want to retrieve the value from the from the radio buttons. Okay, now let's see what the radio button structure looks like. If you go over here, you can see that the radio button structure looks something like that. You have the same name for each radio button. That's the given requirement, that if we want the radio buttons to be connected to each other, we need to assign them the same name. Otherwise, they will behave separately. What I mean by separately is, for example, they are all connected. For example, I can select only one of them. Okay, so to make that happen, we need to assign the same name to all of them. Now over here, what do we need to do is to get the value of this radio buttons. Like for example, the thing is, whenever you're using radio buttons, whenever you're using drop-down lists or checkboxes, you always need to assign a value to the item. Now what value you assign, it depends upon what you need to do. Okay, now since I'm using it to calculate the price of my pizza, what I'm going to do is assign the value. Okay, now what I want to do is let's say I'm going to assign meat over here. I'm going to say chicken over here, and then I'm going to say seafood over here, and then over here I'm going to say veg. Okay, so these are my values for each. So whenever I select them, this value is passed on to the JavaScript, or we can access the value of which one is selected. Okay, so let's go down and see how to do that. Now this time I'm going to retrieve value from retrieving value from radio button. Okay, now how do I get that? Let's say value and say type equal to. Now first of all, I'm going to get the handle for the radio button because they have the same name. So I'm going to say document dot p order. Okay, I always keep on messing them as p order dot p type. That was the name of my radio button. See that? The name of my radio button over here was p type. Now this will give me a handle for the radio button. Now to get the value, the issue is if I just say dot value over here, it will not be correct because every one of them has a value. We just need to get the value of the one which is selected. Not all of them are selected. So how do we get that? To get that, what we need to do is use our knowledge about loops. Since over here, when I say dot p type, it will store everything. It will store all of them over here, all information about that p type over here in type. Now type becomes an array because it has multiple items of that type. Now what I need to do over here is I need to use a loop for say where I in type. Okay, I'm going to use this shortcut that I showed you. I'm not going to use for I equal to 0, I is less than. You can use that as well, but this one is a shortcut, so it's much easier for us to remember. Okay, for where I, because I want to go through all of them. Now when you go through all of them, I need to check which one of the radio button was selected. So I'm going to use my conditional statement if type of I dot, you can say checked, it's not checked, sorry, it's selected. I don't know if it's selected or checked, I forgot about that. Okay, let's see both of them, whichever works. Okay, now so I'm going to say where.I in type if type I dot selected. What I need to do, if that one is the one that is selected, I think it's checked. I'm not sure about that. Let's say dot selected. Then I want to get the value of that item. Okay, so I'm going to just first declare a variable of say p type, and then whenever it's selected, I'm going to assign the value of p type equal to type of I dot value. Okay, this way I'm going to assign the value to only the one which is selected. Okay, now I got which one is selected: chicken, mutton, seafood, or meat or vegetable. Now the thing is, I don't know how much price for each one of them. So in that case, what better way to use a switch statement? So if I use switch and then say p type, whichever type I'm using. So let's say if my case is meat, I'm going to add something to the price. Okay, first I have to declare the price over here, where price equal to 0.00. Okay, this is my price. So what I'm going to do is whenever it's meat, I have to do price equal to price plus something new, whatever I'm going to say. Suppose the medium pizza, a meat pizza, irrespective of the size, is 35 reals. Okay, and then I'm going to use break. This is the same thing that we did earlier, so I'm just going to go through that faster. Chicken, and then say price equal to price plus, let's say it's 25, and then break, and then I'm going to say case if it's wedge, okay, price equal to price plus 15, and then say break, and then the last one, which is seafood, okay, and then I'm going to say price equal to price plus 30, and then say break, and then that should be out. Okay, let's close that, and that should be it. Okay, so now I have the type. Now based on the type, I get the value using a switch statement. I have the total price. Now the only thing I need to do is display the price over here, replacing this 0.00. So again, what I can do is I can use my inner.html, exactly this code, but before that I need to get the so what I need to do is, what's the ID? The price. So over here, what I'm going to do is say var total equal to document elements, and the ID that assigned to it was price, and then I'm going to equal the value of price to the inner HTML of total, so it will replace the. Okay, now let's save that, refresh this, put the value. Let's say I select chicken, and then say order, it still says 0, so I think this is not, or there's an error. Okay, it's not an error, so the value, I don't know if it's checked or selected, I have no idea, forgot about it. Okay, using jQuery for most of the stuff, so that's why I don't really recall how to do that. Okay, so it's checked, so it's not selected, it's checked. So I think selected should work with a drop down list. So now you see, whenever I select chicken, it becomes 25. Let's say I select, it becomes 35, and I become seafood, it becomes 30, and veggie, it becomes 15. Okay, so that's working now. The thing is, retrieving a value from a text input is very simple. You just put dot value. But retrieving a value from a radio button is a little bit longer, because it's not one value. You have to go through all of them and find out which element was selected from all of them, and then get the value for that element. So what you need to do is over here, first get the handle for your radio button, then you put the type, and then you use a for loop to go through all of them. I'm using a shortcut for the for loop. You can use the other one as well, it's up to you, depends. Now inside that, I won't say if type of I dot checked, if it's selected, then I get the value for that item, which can be over here, if you see, which can be meat, chicken, seafood, or veg. Now based on that, I have assigned values to them. Based on this, I have assigned values to each one of them. So over here, my switch statement will have meat, then I'll add price to 35 to the price. If it's chicken, I add 25 to the price, and if it's veg, I add 15 to the price, and if it's seafood, I add 30 to the price, and then I display the total using this. So this is how it goes, like whenever you are retrieving a value from a radio button. Okay, now let's go up to the next one, which is the drop down list. Now the drop down list, it's simple. It's exactly the same as getting the value from the end text area. So over here, I'm going to say retrieving the value from a drop down list. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is, what is the name of my drop down list? So over here, I go down, and this is my drop down list. This is the code for my drop down list. This is select statement which the names with the name of C type, and we have two options, thick crust and thin crust. Again, whenever you are using a drop down list, you have to assign a value to each one of them. So I'm going to say thin over here, and I'm going to say value equal to thick. Okay, now after that, what I do over here is, now C type is the name of my element. Let's go down and retrieve the element. Now how do you do that? I'm going to use var crust equal to document dot p order dot C type. Now dot value. Now so whenever the one which is selected is shown, I get the value of that item over here. So that's it. I mean that's simple. As same as what you did for the previous one. So because the value can be assigned to only one value can be assigned, and that value would be the one that is selected. Okay. So in that case, the crust will now have the value of whichever we have. Now again, I'm going to use the switch statement because I have multiple values. So again, I'm going to use crust on switch statement, and then say case if it's thin crust. Say okay, I'm going to change the price, and then let's say add 10 more reals to the price. Okay, if it's thin crust, I'm going to add 10 more reals. Let's say okay, that should be enough. And then if it's a thick crust, I want to add 15 reals to the price. Okay, then I close that, and that should be it. So I get the value, and based on the value I have to check whether if it's a thin crust or thick crust, and based on that I update the value over here. Now let's go back and see how our forms looks like. So I'm going to enter some number over here. I'm ordering a chicken pizza with, let's say, thick crust. You see the order now becomes 40 because chicken originally, if you see the code, chicken originally was 25 and added 15 because of the thick crust. Now it became 40. So if I move on to thin crust, it should go back to 35 because it's only 10 reals. So this is how it works. This is how it works. You just use dot value. This is exactly the same as what you do for your text password or text area. They all remain the same. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is how to get the input from let's say the last one, which is over here. What we have over here is our checkboxes. Now checkboxes allows us to select multiple items at the same time. Okay. Now how do we select that? Now let's see. There are two ways of doing that, so that's why I have two checkboxes to show you both the ways. Now the first one I'm going to do is retrieving value from checkboxes with different names. Okay, with different names. Now what do I mean by that? Let me just show it to you in a little while. Let's say I'm going to save this. Let's go up and see over here that, for example, I have over here a checkbox for additional toppings. Now each of them is a checkbox with the same name. Let me just change those names to say cap, say 4, so here olive, say onion, and okay. So these are the names that I have just assigned to each checkbox. Now as with the same thing as my drop down list, I need to assign values to them. Okay, I need to assign value to each one of them. Now in this case I know which items is there. So cap means capsicum, 4 means 4 cheese, olives and onions and jalapenos. So what I'm going to do is assign the value. I'll assign the price of each one of them. So for example, if you want to add olives, you want to say, let's say 3 reals. Okay, so I assign value of 3. Now over here I'm going to assign, if I'm choosing a cheese, I want to assign the value of, let's say 10. If I choose black olives, let me assign the value of 7. Similarly, if I choose onion, I want to assign the value of 5, and then if I choose jalapenos, I'm going to assign a value of 8. Okay, so this way I know what numbers are assigned to each one of them. Okay, now what we need to do is get those values and then add them to our price based on which one is selected. Now, how to get them? Say var topping equal to document dot p order dot what is the name of. Now the thing is, we have different names for all of them. So if it's selected, I need to get the value of them. So what I need to do is, I don't need to do var topping equal to over here. I can simply use an if statement and say if document.porder.cap dot selected or checked again. Yeah, so if this is checked, okay, so that means I have check marked this to be included. So if it's selected, I know what to do. Just now. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to get the value of that item and add it to my price. So how to get that value? Document dot p order dot cap dot value. Okay, this is how you get the value. And the issue is, the only problem is, this value is a string. I cannot use it in operations to my. So how do I convert this string into a number? There is a way of doing that. So I want to say price equal to price plus this value. Now the problem is, this value is a string. So how do I convert this string into a number? You can just simply multiply it by 1. Okay, this way I can convert that into a string, into a number, into something that I can use for adding that value. Okay, let's see what happens. So it's capsicum, and capsicum should add how much? It should add 3 to my total price. So I'm going to go back, refresh it, add some phone number, select the chicken pizza with a thin crust, and let's say I select capsicum. So it becomes 38 now. Okay, so that's how we need to do it. We need to use an if condition to check whether that checkbox is selected using dot checked, and then add the value. I'm multiplying it by 1 because I'm assigning the price to the value attribute over here, which is a string. So I need to convert that into a number to actually use it for my calculation. That's why I'm doing that. Now to complete this, I'm going to do the whole thing. If repeat the same thing, it's exactly the same. P order dot. Now the next one I saw was cheese, which is 4 dot checked. Okay, and this way I'm going to say price equal to price plus, I'm going to say document dot p order dot 4 dot value, and then I'm going to multiply it by 1, which will get me that value. Similarly, I'm going to repeat that for document. Oh, it's outside, sorry. Document dot p order dot, let's say, what was the next one? It was olives, I think. Yeah, olive. Say olive dot checked. If this is checked, I'm going to say price equal to price plus document dot p order dot value, and then I'm going to document dot p order dot olive dot value, and then multiply it by 1, and then close this. Okay, one more, I think 2 more. Document dot p order dot onion dot checked. Okay, price equal to price plus document dot p order dot onion dot value multiplied by 1. Again, the last one, document dot order dot, I forgot what the last one was. It was, I think, jalapenos, which is dot jala dot checked. Okay, price equal to price plus document dot order dot jala dot. I'm just repeating everything that I just showed now. Okay, I didn't do anything new. What I'm doing is I'm checking if that is selected, and if that is selected, I am adding that value to my price. That's what we want, right? So I'm just going to go back over here, refresh my page, enter some number, select meat lovers, say thin crust, and order it. It's 45. I add capsicum, it becomes 48. I add 4 cheese, which is 10, it becomes 58. Add black olives, it becomes 65. Red onion, it becomes 70, which is 5, and then add jalapenos, which is 8, which becomes 78. So this is how it works. Now the thing is, we saw that this is the first way of getting checkboxes. The problem is it's too long. I mean, first of all, I have to name each one of them separately, and then I have to get values for each of them, checking each of them if they are checked, and then getting the values. Again, it's too long. So there is another way of doing that. There's another way of doing that which is much more simpler than this one. Assigning the same name with the same name. Okay, I'm going to use the same name. So if I go at the top over here to my form, you can see in the form that I have a checkbox with the same name for all of them for the topping. Okay, now, so in this case, I just need to use one statement to get the value. So I'm going to say var personal equal to document dot order dot top, right? Now this will give me a array, because we just saw that top is actually a name of many elements, of many checkboxes. So this way it will give me an array. Okay, it will give me an array. Now when it gives me an array, now what I need to do is, again, what I did earlier. I need to use a for loop. For var j in per. Okay, now inside that, what I do is I need to check whether which one is selected. If per of j dot checked. You see, I'm following the same strategy I did for radio buttons, because now they are acting like radio buttons because they have the same name. So but each time they are checked, I want to add the price, add the value to the price. So I will say price equal to price plus document dot order dot, okay, I don't need document because I have everything in per right now. So I would say per j dot value, and then I have to multiply it by 1 because I'm going to, again, the same way, I'm going to use a string over there. So I get the value, multiply it by 1, and add it to the price. So this way, instead of writing all this, which is too long, I just need to write this code. Just by naming them with the same name, they become into an array, and then I just use that array to check it. Let's save this. First of all, I made a mistake. I didn't put a value for each one of them. So let's say I'm going to add hand tossed. It's become a little expensive. Value is 10. Let's say over here stuffed crust 20. Value crispy 5 more. Comic on the box, so just a joke. Say value, say 1. Okay, now that's it. That should be done with it. So what I'm going to do is go over here, refresh my page, enter some number, select some pizza, order it 50, add something, capsicum 4 cheese, which now becomes 63. If I select hand tossed, it will be 73, which is 10, and this becomes 93. Crispy, which becomes 98, and then comic on the books 99. I add red onions and it becomes 104. And let's add everything. Say 119 for a pizza. It's too expensive, right? But yeah, this is how it works. Okay, so this is about retrieving values from your form in different ways. We saw that how to retrieve values. We actually have two ways of retrieving the values. One of the way over here was to browse the elements or get elements by different functions and then browse through those elements. Okay, the other one was using the name of the form, the name of the form and the name of the element, which is a very short way of doing that and a better way. So that's what we followed everywhere over here. Retrieving a value from a text password text area input is usually done by using .value, which is that simple. Retrieving a value from a radio button is a little bit different, where you need to first get the handle for the radio button by using this, and then what you need to do is you need to use a for loop to go through all the radio buttons and check which one is selected using the .checked function, and based on that you need to get the value of the one which is selected. And then what I did over here is, because I used a string for the value, I need to switch to that string and then add the price that I need to get. Okay, this is one way of doing that. The other way is you can also assign these numbers, these values to the value over here, which if you do that you will not need a switch statement. Okay, after that we have a drop down list. The good thing about the drop down list is retrieving the value from a drop down list is exactly the same as retrieving the value from a text input, which is simple using .value. And then I can do the same thing using the switch statement. Or if you want to avoid this, you can again do the same thing, is go over there at the top and then assign the value over here equal to the price if you don't want to use the switch statement. Other way, the last one was using how to get the values from a checkbox. Now how to get the values from a checkbox can be done in two ways. If your checkboxes are named differently from each other, then you have to go through each one of them to check if they are checked and get the value, which is too long. As you saw over here, I had to repeat a lot of things. What I can do to avoid this is to assign the same name to all the checkboxes, and I can use the same strategy I used for radio buttons. Use a for loop to go through all of them, see which one is selected using .checked, and then get the value of that element using per j.value, which is, because it's an array, I do the same thing. If you see over here, I did exactly the same thing for radio buttons. So that's about it. Now there's one thing that I did new over here is to change the text in a span tag over here. I just changed the text in a span tag, and the way to do that is using an attribute called inner HTML. So what I did is I get the handle for that using an ID price, or using earlier I used it for phone number, as you can see over here. This was for the phone number, and then what I do is I just say total dot inner HTML, which is the attribute, and then attach it to the price. What it will do is, when you see the form, it says 0 over here. Whenever I select something, it will replace that value with that. Okay, it's just used to assign values to a span tag. So to a span tag. Okay, so that's about it. Hope this helps. I know this is too long, but this is a very important topic in JavaScript, is how to retrieve values of elements inside your form from JavaScript. Hope you liked it. See you for the next screencast, the follow-up, where we are going to do validation for the same form.